Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Labor Live at 12:05. My name is Alex Jorgensen, and I'm the Communications Director here at the Alaska AFL-CIO. We have had a busy week, and the Alaska Legislature is in its 11th week. But again, like most of the Labor Lives actually so far this legislative session, we're going to pull back out and focus on a little bit more of an important issue at the federal level. So on today's episode, we're going to discuss probably the single greatest act of union busting in modern American history. And I'm talking, of course, of Trump's executive order late last week, stripping nearly or more than 700,000 federal employees from the right to collectively bargain and join a union. So today, I am very excited to have two special guests, AFGE National Rep David Owens and AFGE Legislative and Political Organizer Grant Schott. Guys, welcome to the program.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, I think a lot of us maybe saw a little bit of this coming. You know, we knew Trump was no friend of organized labor from his first term in office, but obviously last week's shock was huge. But I think before we really dive into that and unpack it, I would love for you to kind of share with our viewers a little bit more about AFGE. But I know you guys are a big local representing a lot of different types of workers. So what type of work do AFGE members do?
Well, I'm the national rep AFGE. I've been in Alaska since '78, and I've been representing. I was the local president on Elmendorf Air Force Base for 18 years, but I became a national rep in 2017, and I live in Eagle River, so I know about it very well. But I'll just talk about what we in Alaska, the members, AFG members in Alaska, on Elmendorf Air Force Base, Fort Richardson, Allison Air Force Base, Fort Wainwright, Fort Greely, Clear Air Force Station, and the Coast Guard at Kodiak have a wide range of jobs. The employees who maintain the installation are electricians, interior, exterior, plumbers, carpenters, alarm systems, communication maintenance, also working on the range. They have explosive ordnance. We have heavy equipment mechanics, welders, flight line operations, road repair, snow removal. We have child care for the military families, provide assistance to military who are deployed, and we have numerous clerical duties. We also have firefighters and police officers and safety inspectors. That is all the bases. We have also representing the VA. The VA members provide health care to our veterans. Our members are the nurses, the doctors, the physical therapists, social workers, and supportive staff that provide care to veterans. They also ensure veterans have the ability to file for disability claims. We also represent Social Security, which ensures that seniors receive the benefits they have earned. Members provide assistance in processing their claims. We also represent TSA. And TSA employees, the screeners, they ensure the safety of Alaskans when they travel. And we have 19 airports in Alaska, some remote areas, and their rights have been taken away too.
Wow. Now, David, that is a lot of different types of work and a lot of very important work that I think a lot of us as Alaskans maybe don't realize is going on 365 days in the background that helps make our state work, right? And I think a lot of us, our viewers, are really familiar with the NLRB, right? They're very familiar with how private sector unions are formed. But of course, when it comes to federal unions, things are a little bit different. Could you share maybe a little bit of a brief history about how federal employees actually got the right to bargain collectively?
We had several things that happened over the years, but the biggest one that happened, the most important one, was the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. That was the one that really outlined the rights for federal employees to have the right for collective bargaining and to be represented by a union. The act also was to improve government operation and productivity while protecting employees from unfair practices. So till that happened, we really didn't have the right to have unions and collective bargaining. And that gave us the right to go to the table, to negotiate like all our brothers and sisters in the private sector understand. And that's a give and take when you negotiate contracts.
Right. Yeah. And I know federal employees, when you are bargaining, right, it is a little bit different. There may be some things that private sector unions are used to negotiating that federal employees are not actually allowed to negotiate over. What are some of those things?
Well, Alex, one thing's funny. See, as a national rep, I also represent the railroad employees. They used to be government employees in the private sector. I've helped them negotiate 3 contracts. And the biggest difference between private sector and federal employees contracts is the wages. We cannot negotiate wages. That's
Right.
not part of the negotiation process. But I just want to give you an example because everybody does contracts. I'm going to show you how similar they really are. Last year, I completed bargaining on CBA for Local 1712. That represents the employees on Fort Richardson. The articles, the CBA had 44 articles. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. Rights of the union employees, hours of work, overtime, standby duty, on call, health and safety, position descriptions, appraisal systems, merit promotion, details, environmental differentials, because some of the guys that work, they get 4 to 8% more money because they're working in hazardous conditions, like hot work. A lot of guys in the private sector work in hot work, or either high. They work so high up, they get additional funds for that. I also represent, we also negotiate the disciplinary actions, the grievance procedure, arbitration, drug and alcohol abuse, and work-related injuries and illnesses, workers' comp claims.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely some important differences between kind of federal workers and maybe other types of workers. I just wanted to make sure that our viewers kind of knew a little bit about that. But now let's jump into, I think, the reason why we're all here. Late last Friday, we were all kind of sitting back, and then all of a sudden, in the dark of night, or not in the dark of night, but actually here in Alaska, it was like, I think it was like 10 o'clock. I checked my phone.
Yeah.
I was home, and I was like, what the? Trump had created or established an executive order that rescinded a lot of these workers' rights to that collective bargaining. Could you tell us a little bit about exactly what the executive order talked about?
Well, number one, it took away 700,000 federal employees' right to be in a union. It also gutted their contracts. But what the EEO did, it legally strips collective bargaining rights for federal employees. It ends the union's right to represent these employees, shut down any grievance procedure, and rips up the union contract. So I just talked about before was a contract. It's gone. You don't have a contract. And you got to realize it's not just this. They've been pretty sneaky. What they have done also is the Merit Service Protection Board is where you take cases for if you have an adverse action over a 14-day suspension. That board don't exist no more. They don't have enough members. They took them off. So if you don't have a grievance procedure, you would go that way. But now you can't go that way. So if you have an action, let's say it's illegal, how would you adjudicate that? So that's a way of taking away all your due process rights for the employees, 700,000 of them.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's really important for our viewers to just understand the real scale of that, right? Like 700,000 workers. That is not like, oh, a few workers here, a few workers there. That's basically if the entire state of Alaska, basically almost our entire population, were union members. And Donald Trump said, you know what? You're now all not union members. That's just like insane. We've never seen really anything like this. I mean, we've seen plenty of anti-union sentiment coming out of the White House under this administration, under the previous time that he served in the office of the president. But this seems to be a whole new level of union busting that is just, I think, beyond a lot of people's comprehension.
This is crazy. It really is. And you got to understand, this is not just AFGE represents. We represent the other unions represent forest services. We have wildlife and firefighters. We got people who work all over the state and other areas. So all of these individuals have their rights stripped too.
Right. Wow. I mean, it's an attacking, and I think as the saying goes in our movement, an attack on one is really an attack on all. And that maybe AFGE members and federal employees are the first people that are being targeted, but they're not the only ones. We know that, right? So is this executive order even legal?
They're using a provision in the 1978 Civil War Reform Act, which basically allowed the president, for national security reasons, if there was a national security risk, that person cannot be part of a collective bargaining agreement. Guess what? It was the FBI and it was the CIA. It has never been expanded like he has. He's expanded it and using that for a excuse to say, I'm going to take away that 40 years. They've had the right for collective bargaining, but all at once you don't have the right now. So because it's a national security risk for, let's see, the doctor to see a veteran at the VA or a social security person to help you process your claim, that's a national security risk. Or let's say you're going to the park, Denali National Park, and you want to talk to a forest ranger. They took his rights because it's a national security risk. He expanded this, and it's nothing. It's a lie. It is nothing other than a lie and
Wow.
ability for them to take away the rights of employees.
Wow. That is just, there are, I think, a lot of words I want to use that I'll choose not to use on this family-friendly program. But yeah, I mean, it's just so dejecting to see, the number one tool that workers have in this country to actually level the playing field against the billionaire class that have rewritten the rules of our economy since, granted, like the late 80s, right? We know that unions are the equalizing force for workers to actually achieve the value of our labor. So what can we do? Obviously, this is, it hit me really hard. And obviously, I'm not even a federal employee, so I'm not really personally impacted. So what can we do as the labor movement to help AFGE and other federal employees that just lost these rights?
Well, we're not.
Yeah. So,
go ahead, Grant, you jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So yeah, Grant Schott, I'm legislative political organizer for District 11. So I live in Portland, Oregon, but I cover the Northwest Alaska out to Colorado. So if you look up AFG, like on our website, it has the brief AFG story. We started out as an association. So Dave mentioned the Civil Service Reform Act. We actually had a executive order under Kennedy for collective bargaining in 61. So the first 30 years, 32 through 62, we were an association. Here in Oregon, public employees did not have collective bargaining rights until 73. I think Wisconsin was the first state in 61. So all these groups, and some of them are still called, associations, like National Education Association. So even back then, they lobbied, people took collective action. So that's what we have to do now. Even if we don't get these contracts back under Trump, which we might not, we might get a favorable legal ruling, our folks have to stand up. They have to. So Alaska is number 3 in union density, almost 20%. Senator Murkowski is pretty, she's one of our best Republicans, but we need to lobby her. Senator Sullivan, he's, we think we can move him. He tends to listen to the trades, to Department of Defense. Don Young was an outstanding pro-labor Republican. We'll see with the new Congressman Begich, but we need folks to call their offices, email them. We have automated systems that we email out regularly to our folks to automated call, email. Alaska is one of our top purple wall states with 3 members who we think we can move, working with you at the AFL-CIO. So we really need people to consistently lobby them to stand up for the rights of federal employees to collectively bargain. There is a new bill we were talking about offline earlier that 8 Republicans have co-sponsored with Democrats to preserve those rights. The Whitehouse, no doubt, would veto that if it passed, but there is majority support, certainly in Alaska and most of the country, for these rights. So we just need our members, our potential members, their families, all labor folks and labor supporters to stand up and lobby.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for everyone at home, the AFL has an action because the AFL stands wholeheartedly behind this new bill introduced in Congress. And, even if it's not going to be signed by the president, we got to fight like hell, because, it's moments like these that remind me of a quote that I love very much. And oftentimes on this channel, we get a lot of pushback from people that say unions shouldn't be involved in politics, right? Like, unions have gotten way too political. Why are they endorsing candidates? Why are they doing X, Y, and Z? And it's moments like these that remind me exactly why unions are forced into political spaces. In this quote, I would probably get it tattooed on my arm if I was actually interested in getting a tattoo. But it's a quote from Walter Reuther, who was the famed president of the United Auto Workers, where it says, there's a direct relationship between the ballot box and the bread box. What unions fight for and win at the bargaining table can just as easily be taken away in the legislative halls. And that's exactly what is going on here, right? People fought like hell, really from the 30s, to allow public employees to collectively bargain. Eventually, under Kennedy, he wrote that executive order that said, yeah, actually, maybe collective bargaining is in the best interest of both public employees and the government, right? So we won that right, but just as easily as we've seen, it can be taken away. So that's why unions have to be involved. That's why we have to be political, because we have no other option, unfortunately. So thank you both so much for being on the program. Before we end, any kind of concluding comments?
Well, we have a rally. It's going to be on April the 5th at the town square. It's going to be from 12 to 1. And I'll be there. And a lot of other union people are going to be there. And we hope you can take the time to come take part in the rally. There's also going to be a rally, I think, in Wasilla. And that's going to be the Newcomb Park Wasilla Lake. And that'll also be from 12 to 2.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we will make sure we drop those links to events in the comments, and we will get our members out. Grant, any final comments from you?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned. I forgot to mention rallies. The Boise VA had 2 picket rallies in front of their VA last Friday and Saturday. They got press coverage. They had at least 1 network, 2 newspapers there. Great coverage. 50 or more people stopping by, and so a lot of these rallies have gotten good press. So we just need more and more of them. It could be AFGE planned, AFL-CIO planned. A lot of groups like Federal Unionist Network and 5051 and lots of different groups are planning these. So join in, plan your own, or go to other events.
Absolutely. Well, David, Grant, I just want to again thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the program, and more importantly, thanks for fighting and all you do for your membership across the country. Again, without, I think, the work of people like you, workers would be a lot less protected than they are now. So again, thank you.
No problem.
Well, that is it for today's Labor Live at 12:05. Make sure to tune back in next week as we discuss another issue impacting the lives of Alaska's working families. Have a great one.